There appears to be a decline in how people look up to clergy.
While that is true, I think there are some significant reasons why that might be true.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome to another edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're so very glad you've joined us today. I think you're going to find today's topic very interesting, and it's particularly interesting to those of our panel, as many of us, all of us, really are clergy people, and we want to have them introduce themselves to you. You've already heard from two of them, but let's hear a little bit more about them and their colleagues sitting next to them. We'll begin with the gentleman to my right.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Jordan Offsire. I'm a rabbi living in retirement in the Palm Springs area of California, teaching and leading services for the community.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and I serve as senior minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas.
Bert Beach. I am a ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, living in the Washington, D.C. area, about 5 miles from our world headquarters, which means that they call me for certain appointments and committees and so on because I don't cost anything.
I'm Bishop Othel Hawthorne Lakey, and I'm a bishop in retirement of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, and I live in Beaufort, Georgia.
And my name is Mel Robeck. I'm professor of church history and ecumenics at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and I'm a minister with the Assemblies of God.
Well, thank you all, gentlemen, for being here today. Looking forward to this discussion. I know you are as well. And that has to do with clergymen and clergy women, clergy in general. Historically, clergy people have had a great deal of influence in society and have been respected and trusted by their parishioners. Roman Catholics could go to confession with assurance of confidentiality. Ministers were seen as trusted leaders in society. Black ministers have played key roles in the African American community. However, with the growth of secularism and the burst of scandals such as those in television evangelism and child sexual abuse crimes by clergy, followed by cover-ups, it would appear that in America there has been a general decline of trust in and status of religious leaders. A recent Gallup poll indicates that less than 50% rated pastors high on honesty and ethics. Other professionals were rated higher. It would seem that nurses, with 82%, were number one, followed by pharmacists, grade school teachers, doctors, and military officers. Clergy ranked number 7. Perhaps our panelists can take heart with the thought that members of Congress ranked 21st in popular trust. Well, whatever the case, today I'd like our panelists to consider these 3 questions with regard to our topic. First, while poll figures are not infallible and need interpretation, do not such figures indicate a decline in the moral status of pastors, which gives reason for concern? Second, should religious bodies and society in general hold pastors to higher ethical standards than expected for people in general? And finally, what can religious bodies do to lift the pastoral trust factor? Let's return now to kick off our discussion to those who made our opening statements. We'll go then back to Rabbi Offsire. Welcome, glad you're here today.
Thank you.
Could you please tell us a little bit more about your opening thoughts?
Yes, I'd like to begin by suggesting that I'm puzzled by one particular a fact, one particular fact, which is, I don't know whether to be happy or sad that Congress is ranked only 21st. I don't
You expected
know.
worse. No?
I don't know if that is raising them too high.
Oh, my.
Probably. If I'm not mistaken, Congress received a 7% approval rating in one recent poll.
Wow.
7% in terms of those who would feel that they have been doing something positive.
You can send your letters to Rabbi Offsire at this address. No, go right ahead, please.
Anyway, why is there the sense and perhaps some objective reality undergirding the decline in the trust factor of clergy and in perhaps their status and appreciation in the country? I would think that it is part of a larger phenomenon that the moderator referred to, and that is the secularization of America. Why would people appreciate and esteem clergy if they did not have a religious orientation of whatever kind, Christian or Jewish or Muslim or whatever? Why would they feel a sense of trust, and why would they not believe that there is such a decline? In other words, the question when it was asked is of undifferentiated clergy of various perspectives. And why would people who do not identify with religious traditions rate them very high, having no contact with them and having no sense of appreciation of who they are and what they represent and so forth? So I think a good part of this is a discomfort and an alienation from the dimension of the religious, of the spiritual, and implicitly identifying with another worldview that is much more consistent with the attitude that, well, this is a part of people that we don't have very much to do with, and in what way can we know to esteem them as we might?
All right, thank you very much. That starts us off well, but we return now to Bishop Lakey.
Yes.
And if you could please tell us a little bit more about your opening thought.
Thank you so much. Of course, what the distinguished rabbi said is true, and I agree wholeheartedly. What we, I think, have here is a comparison almost of apples and oranges, and I don't really put a lot of trust in opinion polls, because a lot depends on how you ask questions and to whom you ask the questions, as the rabbi pointed out. But if you look at the people who rank high, say the pharmacist ranks high. Well, I speak to my pharmacist, and in my age now, I go there more often than I used to. I speak to my pharmacist, but my pharmacist provides me a lot of pills and stuff. So the trust level is high. I don't have any real personal relationship. I give the doctor sends me prescription, so I trust them. The same. So all of these persons, they're rated on what they do. Clergy are rated in the popular mind on who they are, or more correctly, who they allegedly represent. And so judgments on character failings have a different perspective than ratings on job performance in terms of an objective kind of a position. The other thing is that there is, in this overly secularized society, anti-institutional biases where leaders of institutions have a tendency to be rated low because we are anti-institutional. So when people no longer trust, have confidence in the institutions of society, then they rate those leaders a little low.
All right, thank you very much. That starts us off well. Across the table to Dr. Robeck.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people forget is that all clergy are human beings, and they're subject to the same temptations and the same anxieties, et cetera, that everybody else is, at least at the initial level. It's also the case that trust is always something that must be earned. And I think we have given clergy a free pass on that for many, many years, sometimes things that they don't deserve. We put them up on pedestals as though they could do no wrong, when in reality we know that they do. I do think that it is a matter of integrity, it's a matter of honesty, it's a matter of instilling a clear spiritual foundation, a clear discipline of what it means to be a member of clergy within any given organization or institution. And I think we have to find ways to work with them. You know, I'm ashamed as a Pentecostal to realize that many of the televangelists that we have seen have been Pentecostals, these who have had public falls and so forth. There's something wrong with the system when that can take place. You know, and I have to say that most of these ministers have been independent. There's no accountability. There's no place that somebody can call them to account and say, you must live this way or you have to live up to this. We have within our denominations various codes of ethics that we have to live up to. I have to sign certain things every year, and I am expected to hold to a certain lifestyle. All those kinds of things are expected. But I do think that we have to recognize that it's difficult for ministers with the kinds of pressures that they have to, you know, be accountable on every single level, but at the same time, that's what we expect. They have a relationship with God. They're expected to live out that relationship in tangible ways, and I think we need to hold them more accountable.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Robeck. Across the table, the Reverend Plumley. Your take, please.
Sometimes I think that this might be a little bit like the supposed glory of the nuclear family, which really only existed in a very brief segment of our culture's history in the 1940s and 50s and maybe a little bit in the 60s. My point being that perhaps there really was only a limited period of time in which clergy were given both respect and influence, and then only in certain places. Because clergy inherently deal with intangible stuff, and most societies function on the basis of what can be produced, and clergy can't show that. On the other hand, I want to say, you know, what do we expect? Do we expect adulation? Do we expect people to bow as we walk by? Do we expect people to doff their hats and to treat us differently than they do everyone else? You know, as a Christian, I look at Jesus, and I don't see that Jesus was treated that way. Certainly not in an ultimate way. And in fact, when clergy begin to seek that adulation, mass television audiences, as you mentioned before, Mel, and so forth, and lots of money, it's when we begin to seek that kind of stuff that our vulnerability shows, and that we begin to have the real problems.
Thank you very much. Across the table, maybe respect begets respect is perhaps one of the issues we could think about. Across the table then to Bert Beach. Dr. Beach.
Well, I think this is an interesting topic, trusting pastors. I personally think that people are entitled to expect a little bit more on the moral side, ethical side, from pastors than maybe the average person, because they represent the highest authority to some extent as leaders of the church. I mean, the connection with the divine, with the law, the history, the Bible, the scriptures, whatever it is, they are tied to ethical standards that they are proclaiming to the people all the time. You should be doing this, you should be doing that, and so forth. And if they then live in a different way, you expect, I mean, obviously, that they are not very good people. I mean, you know, you have to trust them. And I think there's been a kind of a downfall because some people have been playing a kind of a great public role with very expensive expense accounts and houses and I don't know what else, maybe female escorts and so on, and living in a world different from that which they were preaching to the people. That leads to the problem. If a pharmacist is giving you wrong prescriptions, he's not going to last very long. He's not, in other words, he does something very well, but in a very narrow area that you trust him. You don't trust him on other things. But the pastor is expected to be trusted on many other things. So it's a very difficult situation, and I think we should be thankful for the trust that we have, and most of our clergymen and pastors, and I'm sure rabbis, are respected by their people, generally speaking. But there have been some big falls that have counted, you know,
Yes.
that have put a burden on the whole profession.
Thank you, Bert. Let's come across the table then. Bishop Olson, welcome back. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I think clergy perform heroic actions in the areas that they're called to minister, precisely because it so requires trust. We're invited on a daily basis into the holy ground of people's intimate spiritual lives. And in a society that doesn't value trust, I mean, we really approach all relations and professional relations on an adversarial basis. Hence, physicians operate under a very trusted guidance, but because of the fear of litigation, you know, there's a sense of trust that's been broken down there. Our police departments, our fire departments have been racked by lack of trust, you know, in the civic good. Teachers, everyone with positions of trust have been, you know, through the use of good examples where those areas of trust have been broken down. The focus upon that has perhaps magnified the problem, but has also fostered a sense of a lack of trust. Even marriage, which is the most intimate relationship, people have a hard time marrying because of a lack of trust. Prenuptial agreements, there's always an escape clause, there's a sense of trust. So because I think people have been wounded in their vulnerability, but we lack a lot if we have the inability to trust, and we lack the opportunity for really true human flourishing. And we have to do what we're able to do to promote trust, but that really is not going to happen through the media or through PR images. It happens by how we minister to the people entrusted to us as part of our flocks.
Thank you very much. Let's come back over to Rabbi Ofsire.
Thank you. I want to pick up on something that Bishop Blakey spoke about, and that is distinguishing between who we are and who people are and what they do. That is the functional part of life and the much more reflective one. The only way that one can really come to trust someone is to know them in some personal way. And we fool ourselves when we watch TV and we see someone on the TV screen time after time and think that we know that person. That is only the person as he or she appears. It is not necessarily who that person really is. And how can we have that kind of connection with clergy if we don't know them and have and they're not valued in the first place? We have appreciation for what people do, but we learn who people are in ways other than staring at a TV screen.
Thank you. Somebody once explained it to me, there are three personas to every individual. The one that people see in public, the one that people see at home, and the person who he really is or she really is.
And the ones that we respect are consistent inwardly and outwardly.
Yes, thank you. Let's come down then. Bishop Blakey.
Yes. What has been said really boils down to partly this, that this age in which we live, this age of instant publicity, this age where any scandal is blown worldwide, and when clergy persons especially, we've had a big scandal a few years ago in our community. One of our top pastors got involved in some things. It's sort of like the one rotten apple spoils the barrel kind of thing, and the image of the entire, I think someone said this, entire profession is spoiled. And we live in this scandal-driven age, and it affects because, as Dr. Robeck said, the pastor on television, that's really not what's happening day after day after day, and it's a misnomer to believe that this is what ministry or ministers are all about.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've run out of time for this segment, but there's an important message we'd like for you to hear. We will be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back. We hope you've been enjoying today's program. It's been an interesting debate, great discussion. We're going to now go to our summary statements, and for that we turn to the gentleman to my right, Bishop Olson.
The role of a clergyman and clergy person involves a covenantal sense of trust that we represent the divine by what we say, what we do, who we are beyond, and sometimes through, and sometimes in spite of, our own human limitations and our very own need for redemption and forgiveness. But it's always on our part to be conscious of the responsibility to maintain and to merit that trust.
Thank you, Bishop Olson. And now, Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I just want to dovetail on that and say that trust is built. I guess this is a statement to clergy that if we want people to trust us, we don't get that by simply taking on the title, but by the integrity of our lives. Think of the little song in Latin, Ubi Caritas, Deus ibi est, live in charity and steadfast love, live in charity, and then God will dwell with you, and people will see that and know that you are one of God.
Thank you. Bishop Lakey, please.
Thank you. Despite the polls and the 7th ranking of clergy, day after day, week after week, dedicated and committed clergy persons are performing the priestly, the pastoral, and the prophetic roles of helping people straighten out their lives, relate more meaningfully to their God, and hopefully find the joy and happiness that God intended through God's call to people who we consider the clergy.
Thank you, Bishop Lakey. And now let's come over to Dr. Robeck. Your summary, please.
Yeah, as a seminary professor, I help to train potential pastors for all kinds of churches. And I think it's extremely important for anybody that's training for ministry to understand that it is a calling, that it is not simply a job, that you can't function in the job of being a pastor or a Christian leader or a religious leader of any kind and not have the kind of integrity that it takes to do that job extremely well. Trust must be earned, but when trust is broken, it doesn't damage only the person who breaks that trust. It damages scores and scores of people around them. And that is a terrible blight on any kind of ministry.
Thank you, Dr. Robeck. And Dr. Beach, your summary now.
I will say that I support wholeheartedly everything that's been said by my colleagues here on the panel so far. I think they have explained the problem. We're thankful for the respect that clergy still enjoys in many ways. because there are many faithful pastors and church leaders that have influence and people listen to. But when they go out of that line that we expect, and there's a big fall, you might say, moral fall, that, of course, reflects on the whole group of clergymen and so forth. So clergy ladies also nowadays, there is a problem we have to face, but I'm thankful for the faithful pastors and leaders in the churches that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Beach. And now, Rabbi Ofsire, your summary statement.
This has been very, very difficult for me, and I think for all of us, because we're forced back in upon ourselves, and we have to come to appreciate who and what we really are and what the best of us can do. And that becomes complicated even further by the reality that we find all around us, that things have become mechanized and impersonal. And there are those who represent the spiritual, the moral, and the ethical on these same kinds of television screens. We would like to distinguish ourselves to the extent that we believe that there are truths that we want to represent to others and that reflect the deepest aspirations of our own hearts and souls.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add something?
Very
Do we
quickly.
have enough time?
Yeah, very quickly, just a few seconds.
I would just like to pay a tribute to my colleagues on this program for over 20, 30 years that I've been here. And many of them have come and gone. They have been men and a few women, but mostly men of great integrity.
Well, thank you very much, and I would concur with that in my short time here at the Town Hall. And now the Charter. The Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. Thank you for joining us, and may the God of all of us bless all of you.